Today is Friday, September 27th, and we're joined by Max Manitz for playoff predictions between the bases starts right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to an episode of Between the Bases podcast. My name is Noah, alongside me is Mo, and today we are joined by 2024 Ref Guest Champion Max Manitz. Max, thank you for coming on. And how does it feel to be a Ref Guest Champion?
That's a hell of an introduction right there. Apologies to everyone in advance. I do have a bit of a cold or something that I can't even place right now, so my voice is totally shot. But it is awesome to be here with you guys. Always love seeing you guys crushing it, all the success you guys are having, keeping at it with the grind. I know the Jewish day school grind, not a lot of open hours during the day, so I appreciate that you guys are taking time out of the day to make content and all that. So you guys are crushing it. Keep going. And yeah, I like that introduction.
Thank you. So today we're each gonna do a team. We'll call it this year's Rangers, which is gonna be this year's team that you think is gonna surprise a lot of people. This year's Dodgers from last year, so like a team you think is gonna disappoint, and this year's World Series pick. So let's start with you. Let's start on a negative note. Let's start this year's Dodgers.
It's weird. This year's a weird year because I feel like there is like a clear upper echelon of teams, and then I think there's a pretty stark drop off to the bottom. But I think of those bottom teams, I think a lot of people would probably say that they have the Orioles as like a step up above a lot of the other wildcard teams. And I personally really don't feel that way. I know they beat the brakes off of us twice this week, so like maybe I shouldn't be saying that. But their bullpen and that whole pitching staff, man, like Grayson Rodriguez just got he was already hurt, but now he's confirmed out for the playoffs. Like they've had, obviously the bullpen's been an issue all year. Starting pitching, that really they have a few guys, but they've also had plenty of injuries there. So when their top three in a playoff series is what? It's Burns, Eflin, and Albert Suarez, probably. Like not bad, but not something you're writing home about either. And I think the teams that had, like last year's Rangers, for example, that everyone knew going into the playoffs that their bullpen was going to be like a question mark, but they kind of made it work because they kicked enough starters to the bullpen and they just had two or three guys that they leaned on heavily and got those outs. Like you can make a bad bullpen work in October if you have enough other places from the roster that you can pull from. And if the top of your bullpen is good enough, the kind of like three through the rest of whatever you have is like fine, whatever, you can make it work. The Orioles, I just don't know if they have that. I think the lineup leaves a lot to be desired in some games. I think it's very hit or miss. And I think the rotation's depth is not enough to sustain a deep playoff run based on what their bullpen is. So I think that if they face Skubal in a 3-game set, or if you face Kansas City and you get Reagans and Lugo, I think there's a very decent chance that Baltimore doesn't make it past the wild card. I hope that doesn't come back to haunt me, but yeah.
Yeah, Moshe, you?
Yeah, for me, my Dodgers this postseason is going to be the Dodgers. The rotation's just very, very shaky. So many injuries. Walker Buehler is not the Walker Buehler that we've seen, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. He's just not the same pitcher. We got news that Kershaw may be able to come back. Even Kershaw coming back in the playoffs it's a question mark, Kershaw in the playoffs. He's been incredibly inconsistent in the playoffs. Yes, they have the trio of Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, which is amazing. But we've never seen Ohtani in the playoffs. Betts and Freeman last year in the playoffs were atrocious. It's just never really can, bet on the Dodgers in the postseason with this core. I mean, obviously they can make a run and win the World Series, and if they do, I wouldn't be shocked. But they're my pick to sell early on the playoffs.
All right, so my pick, it's going to be a little surprising to some people. I'm going to pick the Milwaukee Brewers. I feel like everyone's saying, oh, they're such a sleeper this year. Nobody's talking about the Brewers. But we've been through a song and dance before. Everyone's been sleeping on the Brewers. And last year, they went out there and they got swept by the Diamondbacks. And this year, they could be playing the Diamondbacks again. And if I would ask the two of you, who do you prefer more on a 3-game set, the Diamondbacks, the Brewers? I think both of you would say the Diamondbacks. Am I correct?
I would take the Brewers. I think it's close.
I would take the Diamondbacks. But no, I don't think people think the Brewers are going to make a big run.
They're interesting.
I've heard
people kind of go back and forth on them.
Yeah, and I don't really see the pitching. Yes, they have Devin Williams, they have Freddie Peralta. Tobias Myers, has he been to a playoff spot? No, he hasn't. He's come this young guy, and that came off the scraps for the Brewers, and they kind of made it work. But I just don't believe in this Brewers lineup, and I don't believe in the pitching, and I don't believe in them making a run this postseason. But our next section, let's go the 2023 Texas Rangers.
I will. I don't know if this is a team that people are like sleeping on. Frankly, I actually think they're probably a decent comp to what the Rangers were last year. That everyone was like, sure, they have the talent, why not? I'll say the Padres. I think that they have a really good argument to be a top three. I wouldn't say top two, but I'm sure people would argue top two in baseball. But I think they are right up there with the elite of baseball. I think they paid a really heavy price at the deadline to get some serious bullpen ads and some other pieces, and it has worked out awesome for them so far. Their rotation, roll that out there in the playoffs. Dylan Cease takes the ball for game one. You really have no questions about it. The other guys do more than enough. And their lineup 1 through 9 is just everyone knows their job. Everyone hits a lot of the playoff lineups. I think a lot of the time it's easy to look at them on paper and get excited for them in the playoffs. And then when it actually gets to the playoffs and realize like your number 6 hitter is a guy that it's like, The Padres are pretty deep. The Padres really do a lot of things really well. I don't think they're a team that's like phased by the playoffs in October and all that in any way, shape, or form. I think they have a good balance of veterans who have kind of been there and done the damn thing, as well as rookies who seem to be fitting perfectly well into the puzzle. So they're a team that I think no one should be surprised if they go on a serious playoff run.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be the New York Mets. Tough saying that as a Yankee fan, but over the last 2 months, they've been arguably the best team in baseball. The rotation recently has been great. Sean Manaea has been great all year long. Severino's had his spots. Jose Quintana last month has been unreal. They have their superstar Francisco Lindor. Alonso could get hot. He could carry them for, the postseason. A great defensive team now, field, infield, everywhere. I just think the Mets, they're a very well-rounded team. They don't really have like a top tier guy, but they're a very well-rounded team. They're pretty deep, just like the Padres. I think they can make a solid run.
For me, it's going to be the Detroit Tigers. And I don't know if you guys remember, but we came on here in late March, all three of us, and we did a podcast, this year's predictions. And I was really high on the Tigers. And I was listening to it the other day, a couple weeks ago at this point, actually. And I was like, man, I really missed on the Tigers point. But then they proved me wrong. They went out there and they won a couple games and they got really hot at the right time. And I think that's what the postseason is made of. The teams that get hot at the right time are the teams that are going to go on and win the World Series. And I don't think the Tigers are going to get to the World Series, but I think this fans yesterday, they were going crazy for this team. They got a Cy Young pitcher. They got a really nice lineup. This is a team that I think is going to turn a lot of heads this postseason. And
I could totally see it. I think I've been saying I have a hard time telling if Detroit is actually good or if the rest of the AL wild card just really sucks. I think it's probably somewhere in between the two, but I will say that I really don't think the gap between Kansas City, Baltimore, Detroit, between the two of those between 3 of those teams, I think they're pretty even across the board.
I was going back and forth between the Tigers and the Royals, just because when the Yankees faced the Royals a couple weeks ago, they have Lugo and Reagans, and that's always a great 1-2 punch to have in a wild card series, especially a 3-gamer against the Orioles. But I went the Tigers. And our last section of the day, your World Series pick.
Yeah, I'll start. You're never going to get me to not pick the Yankees. If you're asking me as an analyst, if I'm trying to be totally objective, that's not what being a fan is about. Every single postseason, I lock in and I'm just World Series or bust. That's what being a Yankees fan is about, right? Is that totally fair? Maybe, maybe not. But every single October when it rolls around, I think every Yankees fan in their head is all right, this is the year. All hearts on the line. So this year's no different.
Who do you think they're going to beat?
I will say San Diego. I think San Diego is a roster that's built very well for the playoffs. We've seen plenty of those teams fall flat because the playoffs are random and you can lose 2 games and just be out just like that. But I like this Padres squad.
Yeah, Max, I actually have the same pick as you, as the Yankees being the Padres. The Padres are also my pick, and then on go to the World Series. But yeah, the Yankees are going to win the World Series this year. It's going to happen. Soto, Judge. I think Chisholm's going to have a massive postseason. Cole's going to, be great in the postseason as he always is. And I think the Yankees are going to win the World Series this year.
I'm going to pick the Yankees. I think they're going to beat the Arizona Diamondbacks. I just think the Diamondbacks were there last year. They're hungry. Wow. They want it again. Yankees, Diamondbacks, that'll be a fun World Series to have. And I know my last question of the day, this is not really a team that's going to make the playoffs. This has been one of the worst teams in baseball the past couple of years. But the Oakland A's are moving to Las Vegas in 3 years, moving to Sacramento next year. What are your thoughts on the A's leaving Oakland, and what are your favorite memories you have watching an A's game?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's pretty united across the board on what they feel, right? I think you can, people are going to point the finger at whoever what they want to point the finger at, but I think at the end of the day, it's just like this sucks. This was a fan base that was let down. This was baseball collectively didn't do their job. This is like, it's like I live in New York. That's however many miles away from Oakland. Like I've never been to Oakland. It's never been like a stadium that I've like felt like I have to, check off the checklist. But at the same time, it's also like, you saw those videos yesterday of like groundskeepers and concessions people and season ticket holders and all those people, but it's like the A's are a part of their life. And I think it's very easy to take for granted and kind of forget a lot of the time that, like, it's not just the players on the field that are being impacted by it. There are so many stadium employees and, beat reporters and, the list goes on and on of everyone that relies on that for stability and for income and for livelihood. And yeah, I think it's something that every single Major League Baseball organization should take a deep look at, and they should say, how can we map out a future for ourselves for the next however many years, so that obviously we want to succeed and win World Series and all that, but at the very, very bare minimum, we never come close to anything like this happening ever again.
Yeah, I agree with you. It sucks for A's fans. I can't even imagine what it's like to to lose the teams, because living in New York area with the Yankees and Giants, Knicks, Nets, whatever, those teams, they have roots here, and they will never move, at least for the next 50 years, I assume. It sucks. It sucks. It sucks for A's fans. With that being said, though, you were talking about they have a very devoted fan base. I see a lot of people on social media saying that, but the last 3-4 years they haven't shown up to games. Obviously they shouldn't move, and the reason for that is because obviously they want to boycott the owner, which is totally fair. No, but overall that was very sad for the city of Oakland.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Fisher fired the first shot there. Fisher basically said, okay, I'm not gonna make any attempt to make this team good or to improve the stadium or to have any legitimate stadium plans. It's not like the fans, protested and then Fisher said oh, okay, the fans are protesting, we have to leave. I think Fisher was very clear in his head that he was taking the A's out of Oakland no matter what the fan base did. I think even if the fan base showed up in droves over the last 4 years, I don't think it would have changed that Fisher was just driven by what he wanted to do.
Yeah, I guess this changes Soto's free agency, because now he can't say that he's homered in all 30 stadiums. He's only homered in 29 out of 30.
True. That's a valid point.
I don't know how you want to count that, but that's something taken for Juan Soto free agency. But Max, thank you for coming on again. It's always great having you on the podcast.
Thank you, guys. You guys are crushing it. Always love joining. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you later. Thank you, Max.